check that people are happy for it to be recorded if they speak. There we go, it's recorded now.
So I'm just going to do a very quick welcome again. So welcome to Implications for Practice, Personal, Social and Emotional Development, linking to self-regulation, executive function. As I said, my name is Nikki Difford and I'm co-tutoring with Joe Sawyer. This is an introduction into self-regulation. It's a refresher because there isn't anything new. You know, it's only amended terminology within the revised EYFS 2021. So when you do play this back or you're using it for training and different bits and pieces, then please explain to your staff that actually they're already doing this. There might be a few new ideas and strategies, but actually they're already working with the implications. So a bit of team housekeeping like we always do. So again, we've just asked you to keep your cameras off and microphones muted. Again, that's usually due to a large number of attendees. We haven't got as many on this one, so we will welcome your chat. So again, you can turn your cameras off when we ask questions and your speakers, unmute yourselves and join in. And again, if you want to ask a question, please use the chat function. We will try to answer as we go along, because we just find that really helpful and useful for you as well. If you want to email either myself or Joe with something you've heard and you're not quite sure you want to put it in the chat, if I ask Joe to type in our email addresses into the chat, then you will have that. So that will then support you. And we aim to finish at 3:30. So I'm hoping that's the time you've got. So aim of the session. So it's to look at the personal, social and emotional PSDD area of learning and development and how to incorporate into practice to meet in the learning and development needs of each child through a variety of ideas and discussions. You know, interaction will be through the chat and, as I said, put your hands up. And sorry, I'm not going to fly. I'm trying to get my husband to move out of the way. I'm recording.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry about that. Some of you have children and pets. I have a husband. That's quite annoying. So I do apologise when we're trying to record this. So we will be covering the changes within the PSED area of learning and early learning goals, how self-regulation supports all the 7 areas of learning, the pedagogical support to children and families, an enabling environment, ideas and activities to support PSED, and reflecting on what setting currently provides. So again, this is only a 2-hour session, not a lot of time to go into depth within every aspect. There is a lot of training and documentation which links to PSED, self-evaluation, which we mentioned, and links are at the end of the presentation. And you will receive the slides as a PDF. And as you're aware, the training will be recorded and put onto our YouTube channel. This might be the one that you see after that interruption I've just had, but you never know. Self-regulation, again, as I said at the beginning, is not a new term, but they have mentioned it in the OYFS for the first time. And again, staff may need reminding that they have been doing this within a variety of ways for however long they've worked in childcare. There's always been personal and social development, there's always been emotional development. And again, what we have done differently with this training is we put some reflective points throughout. So at the end of each section that we're covering, there are some reflection questions. And again, this is a bit different because we've done it from the child's point of view. And again, we're not going to go through those in depth. We'll pick 1 or 2 and maybe discuss that. But again, it's for you to take back with your staff and say, how are we doing this? Are we meeting those child's needs? And again, so just, I'm not going to read through this because you're not going to want to hear my voice. I'm just going to give you a second. That will not be enough, a minute to read through this. It's lovely to hear the children, but somebody might need to put their microphone on mute. It is lovely to hear them playing though. No better sound than children playing. You know, again, the key words are there, aren't they? You know, the PSUD is about helping children to develop a positive sense of themselves and to others, to form those positive relationships, develop respect for each other's, to develop those social skills and learn how to manage their feelings. You know, and again, this educational programme for the personal, social, emotional development is broader than before, and it sets out what adults need to do to support. And again, it tells us what to do. The pedagogical approaches are there. It tells you about adult modelling, adult support. So again, you know, Ofsted and the DfE recognise that none of this is possible without adult support. And again, we look at this because this is, as I said, it's broadened. There's more to it. And then we look at the early learning goals. And again, they have changed. But again, this is at the end of reception and children are at the expected level. You know, and again, to get there, we need to support in the early years. We need to support in the preschools, nurseries with childminders. We need to meet those attributes stated in the educational programme to allow children to develop further in reception. You know, self-regulation is not mentioned in that educational programme, but it is implied. And the educational programme for, you know, the personal, social, emotional development details are those foundations, you know, and supplied, and those are the support mechanisms in place. Now, if you've been on to any of our other training, which is available at our EYFS reforms, and if you just type Somerset EYFS reforms, it'll take you directly to that page. But again, we've always mentioned throughout all of our training is in early years, it's the foundations that you are laying. You are laying those building blocks to develop on, and you're going to put down sturdy foundations so the children can use what they've learned in preschools and nurseries and with the childminders, and then take that on board and use that in reception and then through that lifelong journey. You know, and again, there's a lot of research, and we always mention it in our training by John Schreiber, who states that 4- and 5-year-old children begin to see friendship from the point of view of mutual understanding, loyalty and trust, because they are able to see things from another's perspective, and they can sustain cooperative play for long periods of time. And we know that in our, you know, in early years, a 2-year-old, you know, they will play together, but actually they look at it from their own point of view, and that's their level of development, and that's how it should be, and we need to recognise that. Now, I'm going to pass you over. Am I? No, I'm not. It's mine, and then I'm going to pass you over to Jo. Now, this one, I'm just going to do a bit of explanation before I get there. So this is about the characteristics of effective learning, and we've put some music alongside this. Now, we've known from the 2 previous ones, hopefully it will play automatically. Some of you might need to press play on your devices, because we have learned anything from virtual training that all devices play differently. But this is around the characteristics of learning. So I'm going to let you read through and hopefully play some music. Hope you enjoyed that. That was from the 50s. It was Doris Day. And the reason I put that in there is because when I read this slide by Nancy Stewart, and I read the Ready, Willing and Able, I'm thinking, oh, that's a song. I've heard that before and whatever. So I had to go and do a bit of research, and we thought we'd play it. And where I finished, it mentioned 2 things that we're passionate in early years about. One was fun. You know, it's about going out there and having all that fun. And the last lyric was about being number 1. And that's the whole point of this, isn't it? We're there for those children. And actually, and I definitely know Jo's been doing a lot around characteristics of effective learning, and she's updated a course in line with the EYFS. But again, these things actually made sense to me when I link them together, because you've got that ready. You want those children going out there. They want to go out and explore. They play with what they know. They're willing. They're willing now to be involved. They're willing to keep trying. you know, and able, having their own ideas, making links. So for me, this slide made a lot of sense. And again, within PSED, this is really important, those characteristics of learning. So I'm going to hand you over to Jo.
Thanks, Nikki. I feel like I should follow that song with jazz hands and do a bit of a dance or something, but I'm sorry, everybody. I'm just going to define self-regulation. No, hopefully, you know, that little song might stick in your mind when you're thinking about what you want to motivate the little ones we care for to develop into: ready, willing, and able. Just 3 really good key words. So obviously with anything, we need to make sure any changes in terminology, anything slightly different that has come to light, particularly in the revised EYFS, we need to make sure that we can understand and we're able to link and support the definitions to all 7 areas of learning. We may, you know, I've spoken to many providers, childminders, nursery practitioners, managers, you know, who've said self-regulation. Now, tell me again, what's that? You know, executive functioning. What does that actually mean in practice? What does it look like, as I always say, on the shop floor or on the nursery, preschool, childminders provision? So we're going to just actually, to start with, just think about defining self-regulation. I'm not going to again read out all of these. You are going to get a copy of these slides, so you don't need to frantically be writing notes or anything. And obviously, if you want to look further into links for some of the research, the key places to look for to Google are there, but you can always ask me or Nikki via emails and we can send you more concrete links. But, you know, so at the end of the day, so, you know, the one I picked out there is the third one. Self-regulation in its simplest form refers to the ability to control our impulses. You know, that it's to manage one's own emotional responses. And it's that extent to which learners are aware of their strengths and weaknesses and how we and the children use strategies they use to learn all of this. You know, it just describes how they can motivate themselves to be ready, willing, and able. You know, and it's also about controlling those feelings, those overwhelming feelings that they sometimes get, that anger, that fear, in order to get on. And I really like this, with the serious business of play. You know, I think that's a lovely thing, because play is serious business, isn't it? We know that, and we're going to keep talking about that. And we, again, like Nikki said, we all know that. I've said that too many times now, but it's crucial sometimes just to, and this is one of my quotes, we all have them in the team, we need to always be clicking our refresh buttons sometimes, and remember that as one of our key threads throughout everything we do. And when we're looking at, you look at those definitions there quickly about, you know, managing emotions, strategies to cope with things, the ability to control those impulses. I'm sure, you know, even as an adult, we all struggle with these things sometimes. I'm sure we're all thinking to ourselves now of moments within our family lives. Last night, for example, when we might have got a little bit cross with somebody or something, and how do we manage those feelings ourselves? So imagine what it is like for, say, for example, a 1-year-old who is beginning to feel these things but cannot verbalize them, or, you know, a 3-year-old who's experiencing something for the very first time, and wow, what is this that is overwhelming me? So hopefully that's sort of given you a little bit of information there on that definition of self-regulation. And we need to remember as well, you know, do all your staff or people you work alongside with in a smaller team, does everybody have the same definition of self-regulation? You know, something possibly to start a staff meeting off with, if you're doing some sort of reflective document like quests, you know, something to weave into those thoughts. If you're managed by a senior leadership team, talking to them about weaving that into, you know, the understanding of staff around you. There may be some additional support may be required, or just being able to tune into this YouTube again after we've finished today. So that's just something to consider. So then we're going to move on to how self-regulation and the executive function link. Okay, so I hope I'm going to get this right, because this has been a biggie, actually. I think most of the team, we've sort of we know we do it, but we've had to sort of get our head round these definitions and how they overlink. So within the revised development matters, there are 7 key features of effective practice. If you're not aware of this, again, I know we keep promoting it, but on our YouTube channel, Nikki wrote some fantastic training about the key features of effective practice, so please tune into that for more detail. But one of them is self-regulation and executive function. So the executive function, as it says on the tin here, includes the child's ability to hold that information, focus their attention, regulate their behaviour and plan what to do next. That's a huge ask, isn't it? So you can see how crucial our role is in this. And then those abilities contribute to the child's growing ability to self-regulate. So that's focusing their thinking, linked with their attention there, monitoring what they're doing, adapt, be patient for what they want. I'm sure some of you are sort of smirking to yourselves now, thinking of children who struggle with that, and bounce back when things get difficult. And again, they do link very strongly to the characteristics of effective teaching and learning. You know, I'm a big advocate for the characteristics, as some of you know, have attended my training, and you know, I want to go woohoo for those. And you know, it's great to see how they are reflected within the self-regulation and executive function section of the key features. You know, executive function and self-regulation skills are the mental process that enable us to do all of these things, focus our attention, remember the instructions, and juggle those multiple tasks successfully. Now, I don't know where I've heard this or who said it. It could have been Nikki. But, you know, for example, you or I, if we want to make a sandwich, we know to go to our kitchen, go to our fridge, get the fillings, the bread, the butter, get the utensils we need to make it, get a chopping board, get a plate, however you do it, you know all of those things. And together, you achieve something at the end. You know, so a child is learning all of these different this information to, you know, focusing their attention and planning something, but also amongst that, regulating their behaviour. So it's about all of those things linked together. Basically, you'll hear this later, it's learning about learning, and we're helping them to understand and be able to do things that will stay with them as they become adults. And that may be through, for example, the avenue of sustained shared thinking, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. But absolutely central to all of this in the blue box there, as you can see, and a key golden thread throughout the revised EYFS is language development, and that's central. And children use that obviously to guide their actions and plans. And we are going to go into this a little bit more depth later on. Pretend play, as we know, role play gives many opportunities for them to, through their first-hand experiences, you know, demonstrate and help to support their self-regulation. But also we will be thinking about how, you know, non-verbal children, how can we support them to self-regulate as well? So just something else to consider. So moving on back to self-regulation,
can I just cut in there? Only just because I read something the weekend.
Yeah.
And just a few more statistics for everybody, because we always use them in whatever we're doing. 81% of children with emotional behavioural disorders have unidentified language needs. So if you think about that, 81%, which Joe's mentioned about language, and children with vocabulary difficulties at age 5 are 3 more times as likely to have mental health problems. Yeah. So like Joe said, we have to work on this. We have to focus on this. Thanks, Joe. Sorry.
That's okay. No. This is what it's all about. And please, just like Nikki, you know, cut me up there. No, I'm only joking, Nikki. No, just like Nikki contributed there. Please, if any of you have got something, you know, puts the light bulb on for you, that it's something you've read or you've spoken to, or something that's been really successful linked to self-regulation, executive function, any little things or experiences you have, please pop your hand up using the hand function, or put your camera on, your mic, and interrupt, because we would love to hear, because it's about, you know, somebody else might go, oh, that's a great idea, or just what it's like in you know, in reality, like I keep saying, on the shop floor. So here we have, you know, there's many views and opinions around self-regulation. If you just Google it, self-regulation in early years, you'll be there forever reading all of the articles. But Dr. Now I'm going to ask Nikki. I can never say her name. Is it Minnie Conkbear? Conkbear. Okay.
That's how I pronounce it. I'm not sure if it's wrong.
Yeah. her and Ursula Christek Walton and Katrina Mahenvoy, that I'm being really tested today, state that there are 5 areas of self-regulation which are listed here. You've got your biological, emotional, social, pro-social and cognitive. Biological, it's about their energy levels and how they respond to what's around them. So you've got to consider your continuous enhanced provision. You know, is it exciting? Do you invite the children? I heard, I think it's Julie Fisher said, does your environment talk to the children? Do they walk in the morning, afternoon, whenever they arrive, and have that immediate response, think, wow, I want to explore, I want to play, I want to learn? Again, developing those characteristics. In the emotional side, it's about children controlling those positive and negative emotions. You know, so that's a huge thing, isn't it? It's navigating an emotional roller coaster. And I'll keep saying, you know, for us as adults to do that, sometimes it's hard enough, but it's us being in this position where we can support children with that. The social side of things, knowing and understand those social cues and how to act and how to, you know, we can do this through role play. Such a great vehicle for supporting children's self-regulation. We'll talk more in depth about that later. Pro-social, so knowing how to act with others and how to acknowledge their feelings and how to change your actions accordingly as well. You know, because somebody can say something and it's how somebody will respond and act accordingly and hopefully appropriately. And then that cognitive process, how they process their thoughts and use that information. And they may use that information to change and influence their behaviours. So it's really important that we are, as I've often said, I don't know if any of you attended one of the trainings I delivered, and one of the key words I used was noticing. And again, it is about what we're saying with the revised EYFS through everything we've delivered, and I'm sure you are aware through everything you've heard over the last year or so. It's about us knowing our children, and that's the key theme throughout the revised EYFS, and obviously links to personal, social and emotional development. And I actually on social media I follow various early years groups, and something popped up from a man called Dr. Stuart Shanker, and he's written a book called How to Help Your Child and Beat the Stress Cycle to Successfully Engage with Life. Wow, that's a big statement. If we could all do that, we'd be sorted, wouldn't we? But he uses that iceberg analogy, which is used quite a lot in things, almost like the swan effect, some of you may have heard of. And the top of the iceberg is that unexpected behavior, which is above the sea, and he uses these 5 areas of self-regulation under the sea. So we need to think about what is happening, you know, under the sea, possibly something biological, emotional, social, pro-social, cognitive, and to support the child. And he also says that, I thought this was really poignant, some people see misbehavior and then they use rewards and punishment to try to get compliance, but this may not always address that underlying reasons for those behavior. So it's us thinking, yeah, okay, we can see it on top of that iceberg, but what's going on underneath the water? Yeah, so I just thought, if you Google him, by the way, Dr. Stuart Shanker, you will be able to see lots of information about him. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, other words mentioned around self-regulation. So apologies, there's more definitions here. We've got metacognition and co-regulation. Again, like Nikki says, nothing new, and you will already have strategies in place. All these big words and all these new terminology. You will already be doing a lot of this and have things in place to support children. But the metacognition is often referred to as thinking about thinking or learning to learn. You'll probably hear myself and Nikki say that on and off throughout this afternoon's presentation. So it's about that child developing awareness of their own mental processes. So whenever we undertake a mental task, we solve any problem, exercise your creativity, manage and negotiate a social situation, or manage and control your own emotions and motivations. So it's a huge thing to, you know, develop, to support. And do we ever get it right? I've written, actually, it's funny, when you can obviously tell that we both look at our notes, and I've written by the side of mine, this takes a long time. You know, do adults include, can you say that you have got to that stage? in your management of your emotions, your feelings, and what motivates you in social situations, for example. And I would say another thing I wrote, we're still on this journey, but we need to be able to support the children in our care to, you know, with strategies to do this. And I know that you will already be doing this. And again, the co-regulation definition here links to how warm and responsive interactions to provide supporting, coaching and modelling children, you know, will help them, and it will support their need to understand, express and modulate their thoughts, feelings and behaviours. And immediately, as soon as you see that, the key worker approach, you know, that's something that we all have in place to support those children. The key person will get to know that child really and notice everything about them, those little triggers, what helps them, what you know, what is it that encourage sorry, what is it that may trigger that you know, that unlikely behavior. So you will get to know your children. So that's about the co-regulation. Now in the next slide, again, we hope it's going to work. There's a short video from David Whitebread, who was the quote about metacognition. If you do want to watch this film afterwards, obviously you will get sent the slide. It may work for you when you receive it. You can obviously, if you just Google it, it does come up because I tried it this morning. So you will be able to watch it. So it's only about 3 minutes long. So just take a few minutes. Hopefully Nikki will be able to start it for us and absorb what he says. Okay, apologies if some of you couldn't get to see that. We're not sure if some could or couldn't, but I have put the link into the into the chat there if you haven't, and if you just Google David Whitebread self-regulation, even if the link struggles, then you can watch that. And hopefully that backs up the first, you know, the bits and bobs that I've introduced to you today about, you know, you could see that little girl there with the washing line, really trying to work out, problem solve, how do I put this washing on here to stay on there. And she was with her mum or a carer, somebody who was respecting her and letting her try these things out and not trying to do it for her, which we know is absolutely crucial. So moving on, we have a little look at a couple of points of research, and this obviously backs up what David Whitebread has said in his video as well, that, you know, the self-regulation, that these are from, by the way, the green and the yellow to me, or orange to some maybe, are from the Education Endowment Foundation, which has, the links are on the slides at the bottom, and have some really fantastic stuff on there, not just for self-regulation, but also for literacy and maths, early literacy and maths. So if you're interested, please take a look. But the research tells us, we know now, that the development of self-regulation and executive function is consistently linked with that successful learning, pre-reading skills, etc. And, you know, Sue Cowley in the bottom bubble there says about how that if they can manage their emotions and rise to challenges, they are far more likely to succeed. And, you know, we know that these will stay with them as they grow older. And Nikki quoted the research earlier about how important it is for this management of emotions and these positive experiences, because they can have, if not developed and supported, they can have a negative impact. And in the final big bubble there, you know, you've got the quote there that if they have the strategies to improve their learning through effective self-regulation, 5 additional months of progress can be the impact. Now that is huge, isn't it? You know, 5 months when you're 3 or 4 is a large portion of your life, so that's definitely one to think about. And you know, I think it says that sort of thing when you actually quote it to people who work in early years, or perhaps parents, if you're trying to support behavior with them, they'll go, wow, we didn't realize how important it was as well. And I'm sure we can all think of children who we've cared for in the past, or we're caring for at the moment, who, you know, can begin to regulate their behaviour and have those strategies, but those who are really struggling. So it's about us finding the strategies, find those things that work for the child and supporting them through it. And I don't know if any of you have heard of, and I love this, it's called the Marshmallow Experiment. And it's probably one of the best known studies of self-regulation. If you just Google Marshmallow Experiment, it will all come up. And it's the one, and if any of you watch The Secret Life of 4 and 5-year-olds, it's the one where a child is given one marshmallow, but it's popped in front of them, and they're told that if they can wait 15 minutes without eating it, they would receive another one. And apparently the ones who could wait for the second marshmallow were much more likely to succeed at school and have better long-term outcomes in other areas of their lives. And then there's been other follow-up studies from this one that have shown that children's perception of how trustworthy the adult is a key factor in how they perform the test. So that's basically, you know, do they feel respected and valued by those adults who are around them? I can remember watching this one on The Secret Life of 4, I think it was 4 or 5-year-olds, and because that came up when I googled it yesterday, and it's quite funny, but then it is quite telling, because some children just eat it straight away, and some can manage to resist it. They struggle, but they can do it, and they have that control. Not sure if I would, but that's another story. We've put marshmallows in front of me. So yeah, you know, Dr. Minnie Conquerbaya and Ursula, I'm not going to read her name, but, you know, they're starting that sort of self-regulation revolution. And if you Google them both, there are lots and lots of, particularly on family. Some of you might use family. That's family without the letter I. Lots of blogs on there, blogs, whatever you want to call them, with some really interesting information to support you with your understanding, and to use with staff as well. But moving on to the next slide, just remember, babies are not born with self-regulations. So it's, you know, it's about us being in this privileged position to be part of the process, to support them, to you know, to recognize their feelings, support with coping strategies, and hopefully to self-regulate. And those early experiences will shape that early brain development. So we can provide those responsive, nurturing and stimulating experiences that will wire those connections in the brain. And those children, hopefully, who are well supported, nurtured physically, emotionally, socially and intellectually, will develop all of those neural connections and will serve them well throughout their life course. We're not going to go into obviously brain development in this session, but if you would like any further information, please let us know. And there is so much out there, like good old Google, isn't it? If you just do that, you will be able to find out more about early years brain development. I'm going to hand back to Nikki now for the next section.
Thanks, Jo. Really sorry you couldn't see the film. We're not sure why some people can see it and why some people can't. But again, Jo put the link in. I've put in it's available at Siren Films. And again, you can join at the moment for free for 30 days without putting in any payment deals. And then if you want to join their subscription, I think it's something like £49 a year. But they have a lot of videos on there that will support any staff training that you put on. So maybe it is worth have a look at anyway. So we're going to look at the personal social emotional development in context in relation to the 4 overarching principles, which relates to everyone working in early years. So from childminders to nurseries to preschools to receptions. And again, as I said, we're going to look at considering some questions. Now, again, we've got those overarching principles. They came out in 2007 when the EYFS was introduced. Some of you might still have the big poster. Hopefully you've still got the principle and practice cards because they have been really useful and they're really good when you're bringing staff induction into play, especially with younger members, because actually they've got some really useful points on the back of each card for challenges and for self-reflection. Now, again, these have not been changed, they've been tweaked. So the third one down, children learn and develop well in enabling environments with teaching and support from adults. So again, stressing that pedagogical approach. And the 4th bullet point has got now the importance of learning and development. It used to just start with learning and development. So again, we recognise those. So we're going to look at those through 4 sections. So, and again, hoping you can see that picture. The picture came from Birth to 5 Matters. We use a lot of documentation, development matters. And the thing is with Birth to 5 Matters, it's got a lot of research in it. So about the first 50 pages delve into things like self-regulation. It talks about characteristics of learning and it brings into play and all those sorts of things. So it's well worth just having a look at it. And again, you can download it free. But the reason I picked this diagram is because it shows how the overarching principles link and support child's development. Those centre colours link to that overarching principle. They look at individual child, positive relationships, that environment, and learning. And we know that children need support to develop their PSED and self-regulation. The past few slides have shown that. So again, I'm not going to go through all of these because you can again have a look at and download the document, but interactions. So it's there saying relationships are central to children's well-being. Sensitive adults support self-regulation. Physical health and well-being, enjoy learning experience. So again, it links those characteristics of learning. Experiences the world. Children's early experiences influence biological and neurological development, or the ability to learn and the ability to learn. And again, that links to cultural capital. It's about those experiences those children have, or the experiences that you can offer them, because we know that some children don't have all of those experiences that we'd like them to have. But other things that support that, co-regulation. Jo mentioned the definition, so I'm not going to again go into it, but self-regulation builds out of that co-regulation. They need the support to get from that. So that co-regulation is yourself supporting, or parents, carers, and then it's supporting with self-regulation skills. Language development, again, Jo mentioned that. We know that the development of children's language underpins all 7 areas of learning and development. But it's also the same with self-regulation, because it's those behaviours that will help them learn and develop skills in all the other areas. But we also know children will communicate how they feel, not always verbally. Babies cry, 2-year-olds may throw a tantrum, for whatever reason. But again, there is a reason, and that's what we've got to look at. So it goes back to those sensitive adults, and it's our role to support how they communicate and develop those language skills. And again, characteristics of effective teaching and learning. Joe mentioned that. I mentioned it right at the beginning. Emotional self-regulation is about having positive feelings about oneself as a learner, a sense of well-being, and the ability to manage one's feelings of behaviour. And again, it goes back to having that confidence. And there's always, and Sarah won't mind me sharing it, if you know Sarah Love, who's a colleague, you know, when we talk about mathematical development, she'll say, no, not going there, don't like it. And again, that was because she was told at school, you know, you're not any good at this. You know, so then she took that on board thinking, well, actually, I'm not very good at maths. And you hear that a lot of times, especially about maths. You know, so again, it's building that confidence, you know, so even if they get that question wrong, let's try it again. You know, I can see how you got to that, but let's try it again and see what we can do. And again, we mentioned play. And oh, sorry, about characters effective learning. If you look at Development Matters, pages 13 to 19 in the 2021 one, because they have updated it and tweaked it, it gives examples on how to support children. And it's quite extensive, which is quite handy, especially if you've got, again, people that are not sure about the characteristics, not sure about what to do. Again, the information is there. So have a look at and play. And, you know, good old statement, Froebel, he said, play is the work of the child. You know, and I've been in this a long, long time. I'm working with early years since I've been 18. I'm not going to give you my age now, but it's 30 plus that. So again, we, you know, our definition was children learn through play. That was our mantra as such. You know, children will learn through play. That's how we sold it to our parents and things like that. So nothing on here is any different to what we don't know. We know already, sorry. So again, take that from this. Actually, we do this. All right, I've learned something, because I'm hoping you go away from any course and learn anything, even if it's just that statement from Froebel saying, you know, play is the work of the child, or, you know, anything like that. But again, it is about knowing what you know and use what you know. This isn't about asking you to change anything. It's about developing what you already do. So because we're talking about thing, we're looking at unique child. So development is a continuous, complex interaction of environmental and genetic factors in which the body, brain and behaviour becomes more complex. And again, going back to those principle and practice cards that you saw on the slide with the overarching principles, you know, this links to that nature-nurture debate. And again, that nature-nurture debate is probably older than I am, actually. It's been around for years, you know, and we know that everyone is unique in their personal, social, emotional development. You know, a product of our unique genes, that's the nature. And Joe mentioned us about adults. You know, there were some statements on that thing. I'm thinking I haven't really got to grips with that. You know, so again, it is that it's about you, it's about that child. And also it's about the particular environment created for us by our families and that community. So that is that nurture. And again, goes back to those experiences, isn't it? You know, I'm from a very large family, so my environment and my community was that family, and it was very large with lots of different people, had different ideas and themes, and they did all different arts and crafts. And so actually I got a lot of experience from that, you know. But if you're a very small family and actually that child's very inclusive, they're not going to get that. So again, that comes through you as the environment, as that childcare provider, you know. And again, I've just put how we support that down the side. It's about, Joe mentioned this earlier on, it's about knowing your child, its value, and understand the children you are working with. It's about knowing their communication style, their learning style, their life experiences so far, what their interests are. So it's about that starting point, isn't it? Getting to know those children right from the beginning. Understanding the processes developed in children's growth, development and learning. So again, mentioned within the UIFS, mentioned in Development Matters, Breath to 5 Matters. You know, it's about child development and getting staff to know. Now, again, all of us are early years trained. Somewhere within that training, you would have had something on child development. Now, again, mine was a long time ago. So sometimes, like Joe, it's pressing that refresh button, having a recap, and again, buying some documents or downloading from the internet, some support tools that will help that. And we're going to talk about some within language. Awareness of their interest. So again, getting to know the children and being aware that that might change. You know, it might be dinosaurs one week, then brother comes home with a Power Ranger, and that'll be it. It'll be the Power Ranger that takes over. So again, it's keeping up to date with your children. And Joe mentioned this word earlier on, noticing how the child communicates. You know, and again, as I said, it can be verbal, non-verbal, and again, their behavior, as much as anything, tells us something. You know, we might not like what the behavior is, but actually it will tell us something. You know, and again, if you'd like to put any feelings you have in about the nurture nature debate, my thought is it's an old debate, and I think we have to acknowledge that nature is inseparable from nurture, and they both are sources of human potential and growth, but also as well as dysfunctional and problematic behavior, because if that environment that they're in is not a good one, then actually we have to support that. Any thoughts? Please put into the chat. I might not bully you this time, but I might bully you next time. So again, it is worth putting something in there. And if you're thinking, where is she going with this? Just think about those Romanian orphans. And I'm going back about 15, 20 years probably, when we had those, they were in orphanages and they were just put in cribs. And you saw some children just rocking, you saw some children, and they had their basic needs, didn't they? You know, you had those, they were fed, they were kept warm, but actually what they didn't have was a stimulation to help them develop. No? It's an afternoon, you're thinking, I just want to get on. So reflection, child's perspective. So again, those were those reflective points that I talked about right at the beginning, you know, and again, this is from a child's point of view. You know, so again, the first question is, how well do you know me? And I'll be perfectly honest, some children you get to know really well. Some children actually don't always communicate with everybody. And it's a bit like that key person approach. And Joe's, one of us is going to talk about that in a minute. You know, it is that thing of, you know, they might go to some key people and they might get on well with them. They might not get on with others. So again, it's not about knowing, it's about knowing the children, but it's also about knowing your staff. Can you meet me where I am so we can raise expectations of what I can achieve together? Because again, if you look at your next step, sometimes you might have them up here where actually they need little steps to get there. So again, work with the child. And can you appreciate the biological, social and environmental influences that might mean I'm not yet ready to make attachments and friendships? And especially in this past 18 months, you know, relationships, you know, you might have a 2-year-old start with you that hasn't been outside the home, or parents have been afraid to go out and mix. So again, they might not be ready for that. That will be a long settling in period. So again, just use these with your staff when you're doing some training. I think you'll find them really useful. So that's unique child, which we all know, and I'm going to hand you over to Joe, who's going to take you to positive relationships.
Yeah, so like Nikki said, we're going to move on now to the next principle, positive relationships. And I just thought I'd say as well that the 4 overarching principles, we're not doing these in an order of what they, you know, what you should think of as in more important, because obviously they all weave into one another. This just happens to be what we've done on this presentation. So we know Nikki's talked about the key work, commented on the key worker approach already, that we need to consider those positive relationships for children with those significant adults in their lives, and that can be their parents, it could be grandparents, other key family members, even a neighbour may be very much part of their extended family, as you may call it, key workers, teachers, teaching assistants. Children have some children are fortunate to have many adults in their lives, so there are lots of different relationships that they may come across. And the research shows us across these 3 bubbles here, you know, the child who has benefited from security in those relationships is more likely to feel confident, self-assured, and they will probably be able to cope with difficulties more. And those warm, trusting relationships with those knowledgeable adults, i.e. all of us in early years, support children's learning more effectively than any amount of resources. Now, we're not saying there that resources are not important, because of course they are. But I think I say this in some of the training I've written, and Nikki would hopefully back me up on this, but you are the most important resource to that child as well. The way you engage, the way you support, and the way you create these positive relationships. And like it says here, Carers who are emotionally available to a child, you help the children to feel safe, to face challenges, risks, and make mistakes. And links back to the characteristics again, and that's from the EEF, the Education Endowment Foundation. Great research, like I've said before. All of this links, just like everything in the learning and development, the 7 areas of learning in early years. I think we just hear that all the time, don't we? How everything overlaps, interlinks, cross-curricular, whatever you want to call it. So your key worker approach is obviously crucial here. But something else we need to consider is, for example, children from possibly those vulnerable families, and there may be perhaps mental health issues within the family, and that may prevent those developments of self-regulation skills and have negative impact on those positive relationships. You know, not all children have this security in their lives, so it's up to us. Obviously, we can get to know the families and hopefully support them with regards to that, but we need to be those key people. We may be the only key people where they feel that sense of security and have that positive relationship. So moving on to attachment, and now we probably have all have heard about various attachment theories. It's about those warm, nurturing relationships, and they're crucial for children's personal, social, and emotional development. You know, like it says here, current understanding of attachment theory informs us that we rely on that consistency of that primary and secondary attachment for our early years development to be really positive, as well as our physical and emotional welfare. I think that's very you know, it's again that's something that possibly some of us can relate to as well as adults, having those secure attachments, those positive relationships in our lives as well, give us that feeling of security. And attachment plays such a huge role in those relationships, and it's the responsibility of us as part of the children's lives to tune in to what they're doing, you know, and to really think about that. I love this poster here, Nikki. The links on there came from Bain, so Bath and North East Somerset early years, and it's about that secure attachment with like my key person, what it does for the child. And I like it because it's in the child's voice, gives them that sense of self. It enables them to make friends, etc. I'm not going to read all of that, but obviously if you would like to access that poster, the link is there. A lovely one to use, pop up in your settings, share with parents to help them to understand as well how crucial the relationship in their little ones' lives. And I observed Nikki and Alison Jeffrey, as many of you know her, delivering this training last week. And Alison actually said, you know, she works very closely with Sue Rayner, who's one of the maths consultants, and you may or may not agree with this saying from Sue, but she says we need to love our children in our care, but obviously in a professional capacity, and give them that positive relationship and feel that they are attached to us. And thinking about the key worker process as well, you know, everybody does it differently in their settings. I've heard of key families where obviously there's a higher ratio, a lower ratio of staff to children. So, you know, you couldn't possibly have, you know, in a reception class, for example, 30 key children if you've only got a TA every morning. So it's about creating those key person families. Perhaps there's other options. And some settings I know they don't say at the start of the term, the year, right, you're going to have child XYZ, you're going to have child ABC. They allow the children actually to spend time in the setting, and it's who they are drawn to. Because this may be slightly controversial as well, you know, children will know those who may not get on with them, and we all click with different people, don't we, when we're put into a new social situation. So that's something to think about. You know, if a key worker relationship isn't going great, it's not clicking, then change it to suit the needs of the child, and obviously so the adult and child links and supports each other effectively. Okay, so moving on, positive relationships. A question here: how do you ensure that children within your setting form positive relationships? So please, again, in the chat, if you have anything that you already do, then please share that with us. You know, the list we've developed, or Nikki has, is about the key person approach we've already touched on, listening to children, giving them that time, as well. That time to just, I always put it in inverted commas now, to be with them. And I think some people are struggling a little with the revised EYFS to not always seem to be busy. For example, if Ofsted have come, then they think that, oh, I must be doing an activity. But no, it's about you being with the children and listening to them as well. That supportive language links to positive interactions, because obviously then you are role modeling to the children in your care, supporting them to learn, supporting them with their intimate care as well, routines, giving them space, not just to move around, but space to be themselves and possibly have time to support their emotions, and create those positive relationships with parents from day one, even when the parent comes to look around before they've decided to choose your setting. Give them that feeling that this is a place where the relationships are going to be strong, effective and secure between all stakeholders, obviously with the child as the most important. So we move on to the reflective questions in this section. And like Nikki said, oh, sorry.
Can I just bring in there, when you mentioned positive relationships, hopefully we've sent it out to our link workers, didn't we? And you put it on Facebook and whatever, but there is a new book out there. No, a revised What to Expect When.
Yes, yes, that's right.
Which is really good, and it explains to parents, child development, sharing information, the importance of play, characteristics of effective learning, and how parents help with their learning, and that's split down to those development, so birth to 3, 3 to 4, and 4 to 5. So again, if you can, it's easy to download. I'm not suggest you print it off, but again, some points are really useful when you're doing that settling in. So
yeah, thank you, Nikki. So yeah, like I said, just moving on to those reflective questions. Again, I'm not going to read them all out to you. They are there for you to look at, to think of. But the first time I saw this presentation last week, I actually looked at these, and Alison said the same. They really made me sort of think about when I was in a setting, that maybe some days none of us are perfect, are we? And we weren't as responsive. We may not have tuned in to that child who possibly needed that little bit more support, possibly one who wasn't so verbal or confident to communicate with us. So yeah, it's really, really worth thinking about, and the way these questions come from that child's perspective are, really effective. So how well do you tune into them, their needs, their interests, motivations? What strategies do you have in place to find out these things? Are they from your observations? Again, that term, just being with the children. I really like point number 3 about, can you sit with me when I'm struggling and lend me your calm? So we all know it's hard for us to, stay calm in situations. How do we? It's hard not to react, possibly feeling a little bit angry ourselves when a child is having a tantrum, but maybe link back to that iceberg analogy, that tantrum is actually telling us something, particularly if the child is non-verbal. But hopefully through knowing the child, you will hopefully be able to understand that trigger. Those partnerships are obviously crucial. A child's family, has a very intimate and pertinent knowledge of their child, and particularly with parents of a child with SEND, they may have a lot of information to share and will need to feel a strong sense of partnership in working together, to make sure it's for the best interest of their child. And I'm sure there's some of you here, like myself and Nikki, who've been in early years a long time, who can remember the good old curriculum guidance for the foundation stage, which quoted, "Parents are the first and the child's most enduring educator." And I think that is still very, very valid. So yeah, perhaps again with these reflective questions, share them with colleagues, read them yourselves. If you use a self-evaluation tool to support your provision, then weave them into that as well. But they really do make you sort of stop and think, actually. So yeah. Thanks, Nikki. So I'm going to hand back to Nikki now.
Thank you. I'll just put the link in What to Expect When. There's been a chat from Bernadette. Thank you very much. She's put, it's a difficult one about saying love. When children tell us they love us, we always reply with, "We like you too."
Yeah, I think that's that's absolutely fine. Yeah, it's about demonstrating to the children that they are secure and they can come to you and you care for them and they know where to go. Yeah, I went to visit, obviously I won't name the setting, I think it was when we were just allowed to go back out and about a little bit safely, obviously 2 meters distance and all that, and they had made significant improvements, and it was so evident when I walked in the room. All the children were engaged, calm. It was just incredible, and it was obvious that the staff had worked really hard on noticing and supporting children with their emotions and their security and their feelings of wanting to be in this setting, because when I visited before, it definitely wasn't like that. So yeah, they've done an awful lot of work about making those valuing the children at the end of the day, each individual one as well. So yeah, thanks, Nikki. Over to you.
And please, everybody else, please, questions.
Yeah, thank you, Bernadette.
So enabling environment. So we're going to, we all know this. Again, this comes the definition from the principle and practice cards. A rich and varied environment supports children's learning and development. It gives them the confidence to explore and learn in secure, safe, yet challenging indoor and outdoor spaces. An enabling environment ensures that children grow and develop to be resilient, capable, confident, and self-assured. And again, if you talk about enabling environments, it's usually split down into 3. So we talk about the emotional environment, the indoor environment, and the outdoor environment. And again, both Brunner and Vygotsky, who David talked about earlier on, they emphasize a child's environment, especially the social environment. And again, both agree that adults should play an active role in assisting the child's learning. And again, Greg Bottrell, if you listen to him at our conference, he mentioned something called the learning landscape, which I absolutely sort of fell in love with, because actually that just says something to you, doesn't it? The learning landscape. What are you doing? Again, terminology is different. It means the same thing as an enabling environment, just makes you think of it differently. And I went on to one of his blogs, and he talked about, plan for identity, plan for freedom, plan for landscape that sings with opportunities and possibilities. And for me, that just opened the world up, really. And this is what you do already. Again, he just flipped it on its head and made me think differently. Whose identity are you planning for? Is it for yours or is it for the children? And actually, all of this should come from the children. Plan for freedom, give them space, give them time. Because actually you can't build a den in half an hour. And if you've got such a set routine, that's really difficult. So actually we need to say to them that actually you can leave it there. Let's go and have our snack. We'll come back to it afterwards. Not, oh, it's tidy up time and all that work they put in, you've got to pack it away. And again, plan for a landscape that sings with opportunities and possibilities. So again, make sure your resources are, open-ended. And again, we've gone away from those wonderful toys, and they were wonderful. You had some of those that was a cube and then it opened up to a car, or people put boats out in their outdoor areas, and they're lovely and they are lovely opportunities, but that's all they will be. So again, it's making sure that you have endless opportunities. So have they got the blocks, they can make their own boat, and then they could turn that into a car or whatever they want to turn it into. So again, these were just there to make you think, really. So again, I am going to ask for some stuff in the chat on this one, and I'm not going to click my clicker and show you what we thought about until somebody puts something in there or comes off of mute. I'm quite happy for that as well. So what resources do you use to support children with their emotions? And again, if you come up with something different than what we've got, we will add it into our list, so that again, somebody will learn from that. Storybooks from Anna. Brilliant, Anna. Yes. And there are so many out there now, aren't there? And you might know this one. It was on our first one. Somebody put in there, I am angry. And that was by Michael Rosin. That's meant to be good. Jennifer Chilcott put range of books that explore emotions. The Colour Monster. Yes, he is lovely. And the resources that go with that one, Jennifer, I saw somebody doing spoons. And I thought, oh, that's so easy. You just paint them with a black marker pen to add the expressions. I thought that was wonderful.
I like what Cannington Preschool have said, my own face. I think
Yes.
that's brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. Say no more. You've always got it with you.
Yeah. But children know that face as well when you look at them. They know from an adult's point of view, oh, I've just stepped over the mark there. I better rein that in then, or I'll just move now then, or whatever. Yeah, puppets and soft toys. We've got drawing and painting emotions. Actually, that's one I didn't have up there. I'll add that one. Brilliant. So again, it's just different ideas, and I really do appreciate you putting some bits in. So we pulled a few together. So again, we've got emotion pictures, you know, and we've also got emotion words up there, because I know if you're in reception, you know, you're encouraging that vocabulary and whatever. But again, all I can say is a bit like Joe, I go around to visit a lot of settings, and I went to one where they were above the architrave of a door. So the child had to look right up, or it was bending my neck. So just think about where they are and at what child's height, and are they interactive? Can children use them? You know, puppets, again, soft toys, a wonderful thing. And you were all given persona dolls, oh, about 10 years ago. And again, I'm not sure if they're still around. Some of you might have them, but, you know, those are really useful. Glitter jars, that was an example of calming down. So you shake it and then you watch that, and with that you breathe and, you know, you calm down. The egg timers, and again, lots of different things. It can be a strategy for turn taking. It can be a strategy of just time out maybe for a little bit. You know, why don't we go and run around, or different things. I've got communication up there. So verbal, non-verbal, you know, visual timetables are really useful for some children, and they need those. They need to know that. Physical activities, you can see the little girl doing yoga, you know, early years practitioners. And as Joe mentioned earlier on, they're your biggest resource. They really are. And again, we put on their space, because actually some children need to let off, and they need to either run, they either need to just go out there and have that space away from everyone else. And again, that is something that adults use as a strategy. You know, they take running up, and then it becomes their release valve. Somebody's mentioned teaching the signs for different emotions and checking in with them each time they are in. And somebody's mentioned cosmic yoga. I don't know what that is. So Bernadette, if you'd like to put some more in about that. I'm just going to put another one in, which Joe mentioned. So if you want to, you said about the handle with care card, Joe.
Oh yeah, I've seen. I don't know if anybody has seen this. I saw it on social media again. And it's like the handle with care is obviously relates to a laundry tag on your clothes when it says that, but it's something that parents can have and hand to the practitioner if they don't want to sort of discuss that the child might need a little bit of more support with their emotions for that session in front of the child. So and this obviously, we're not talking about a child protection issue or something here, but perhaps the child is a little bit more tired, for example. You know, if there's a newborn baby in the house, obviously if the card is just quietly handed to the key worker is going to understand that, because of that positive relationship between each other. And yeah, it just says, I can't remember the words off the top of my head, but something along the lines of, please handle with care today. They may need a little bit more support with their emotions and thinking and the routines in your session, something along those lines. So it's just so you've just got that, you're keeping that additional eye on that little one who may need the glitter jar, may need that run around outside to let off steam, or that time just lying on a cushion looking up at the ceiling for 5 minutes. You know, we all need that time ourselves, don't we? And please don't now all imagine me lying on the floor looking up at the ceiling. But yeah, you know, it was just something really, really lovely. And in the session I think you did last week, Nikki, I observed somebody did say they'd seen somebody using that, so that's really good. Oh, so Bernadette saying about cosmic yoga, there you go.
Is on YouTube, has lots of different storylines, but lovely for children and adults to follow. Go and have a look at that.
Always good if it's easy for us.
Yeah. And just because, it was something that I read, and again, it linked into something, and this was a 4-year-old explaining yoga. So, she turned around and said, okay, so yoga is just, you breathe in and out like this, gave a demonstration, and then you start doing slow karate. And I thought, oh, again, it's that explanation, isn't it? A little bit different. Sarah mentioned, the next slide is all about emotion coaching. And again, so training is heavily involved in. And again, there is, it's open to all, this emotion coaching training. And there are some kits that are coming alongside this. Now, I think the early years communities have bought a kit for every setting. But at the moment, we're a bit like everybody else. We're waiting on delivery. And I'm sure you would rather have your petrol than your kits at the moment. So again, and thank you. Oh, Joe's put cosmic yoga into the chat. So, and again, this is what the training will encompass. It's a MACE approach support, and it will link you to the EYFS, and it will link you to Ofsted. So again, I've put the link on the slide. So when you get the PDF, and again, within that training, they'll talk about an All Emotions Are Okay book. And again, some early years communities have bought those for the settings. If yours hasn't, and you think, well, actually, I would like that, you can talk to your early years community leads. If you're not sure who they are, then please contact your link workers, and we can put you in touch with them. I'm not saying they will, but again, you've all got, every early years community has got a bank of money. It's not endless. But again, it might be something that you think, actually, that would really benefit from us. And I know some settings are using it with their parents. So it might be worth purchasing 2 books, and one can go home with a parent, and but like a lending library. But again, it was just there to make sure that you are aware that you can go on this training. And I know Joe has done it and thought it was brilliant. So again, please do that. So enabling environment, we talk about pedagogy. We've talked about it all the way through our training. It's one of the, it's a terminology again brought to the forefront. It isn't anything new. So again, have a look at that. But again, supporting children and self-regulation with. So it's a bit about those variety of feelings that children have, isn't it? Which impacts on their behaviours, which then could impact on their learning. So belonging, I am part of the group, not apart from the group. So it's involving them in group activities and song time. And a big one for me is using that correct names. It's that sense of identity. And again, when children are little, they might not challenge, but I run a rainbow group. And I always remember I had a little girl called Felicity. That's what her sign-in form said, and her registration form, and Mum always called her that. And we were about 3 weeks in until she came up to me. She said, I hate that name. I'm called Liz at home. And Mum hadn't said that. I didn't know that. And it wasn't till she said that I had that conversation with Mum. Oh, yeah, we do call her Liz at home. So again, it's about knowing those children, isn't it? About knowing those families. What can be incorporated from home? Working together. Link it into your routines. Collaboration. They are learning how to work and play with others. And again, like Joe said, that's something even as an adult, we do team games sometimes, and you get frustrated because you want to input, but there's somebody else doing whatever, so you follow them. So again, think about that. And I put a little scenario there, the behaviour. Child is disrupting play. They're knocking towers and stealing props. So what communication are you getting from that? I want to play. I just don't know how to join in. So what do? Hopefully you model in the moment. You give the child the words. You model when the child is playing independently. You talk to them. You show them those feelings. And that's really hard, isn't it? Because it's a bit like when a child bites and you're saying, well, that hurt Freddie. They don't know it hurt Freddie because actually that felt okay to them. So again, it's having those conversations. Adaptability. I am learning that there are different rules for different places. And we know that children do adapt. Some might take longer than others, and support must meet the individual child. And again, it's working with that parent carer. And again, another quote, the art of life lies in a consistent readjustment to our surroundings, because our surroundings are always changing. I don't know about you, but if you're out there driving and suddenly you get a diversion, You're thinking, oh my God, where is that going to take me? How am I getting there? You know, some people deal with that okay and think, oh, I'll just follow it, it'll be fine. Others thinking, this isn't my way, I don't know where I'm going. And children feel the same. Contribution. I have a responsibility to myself and others. And definitely they do. You know, and again, it's about, that's a taught thing, isn't it? About taking responsibility. It's easy to blame somebody else than actually do that. You know, and children must grow up supported and guided to develop an awareness of the needs of others and how to live within a community. And again, it's about working with your parents on this, because parents will always say, oh, that's my fault, you didn't do that, or whatever. So again, it's having those conversations, you know, and again, that's supporting those self-help skills. You know, and talking about contribution, and again, it's a bit, this is another reflective one, but again, this is based on yourselves. You know, do your children have the opportunity to prepare and serve their own snack? You know, do you allow time in your routine for children to gather their own belongings and put them on independently? You know, you probably, and it is that time thing, isn't it? You know, is there an area for children to wash their own items after lunch? During tidy up times, do you ensure a specific phrase is given for children is given for children contributing? You know, wow, Freddie tidied every single train away today. Oh, thank you for remembering how to look after our trains. So again, it's that positiveness, isn't it? And then scaffolding. So again, another terminology which was around back in Bruno, which was in the 60s and 70s, you know, but it has become a key concept in education. It is a framework to describe an adult supportive role in children's learning. You know, it's scaffolding enables a child to solve a problem, carry out a task, or achieve a goal which is just beyond his or her abilities. So during play, where foundational social and emotional skills are developed, scaffolding is a bridge to two new skill levels using 3 key ingredients. So again, going back to those pedagogical strategies, modeling the skill, giving clues, and asking questions while the child is trying out a new skill. And as the child approaches mastery, withdrawing the support. And again, it links into Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. And again, we're going to look at a picture about that. But, you know, in scaffolding framework, the practitioner plays a supportive role. We've got that, we know that. But your role is also to observe, notice the children, recognise the stage of learning they're at, and then provide support to help them reach the next stage. It's about offering either activities or challenges just slightly above the child's development level or ability. So we need to remember that. And again, just basically a refresh slide. And again, took this from Joe mentioned earlier on, a lady called Sue Rayner, who does, especially in West Somerset, they've done all of our maths training for us. And again, it's that never do for the child what they can do for themselves. And we've all been guilty of this, either with our own children or working within settings, especially putting coat on. Mummy's outside, quick, let's put your coat on, you know, or we've got to get out the door now, let's put your coat on. Actually, give them the strategy to develop that. And again, this is the Monty Sawyer approach, is about, you know, flipping the coat over your head and it sits on through your arms and whatever. So they can do that. The next stage then is helping them do their buttons or their zip. And it might be you just put the zip in, they do the rest of it. So again, that's what it's about. But again, it's about that working with parents, because actually you do all this and then for whatever reason it goes home and the parent puts the coats on, the parents might feed the child, you know. And again, it might be because actually, you know, they're busy, you know, they've worked all day, they've got to come home, they've got to feed the kid. So again, and we've talked about putting shoes on, doing their homework never helps them if you do their homework for them, because they'll struggle later on. So again, give them the tools. So at school they have pebbles and whatever to help them counting. You might give them some buttons to do that. But again, it's having those strategies to work with parents. And again, the strategies to support scaffolding. And again, there we have the zone of proximal development by Vygotsky, and it's that dark blue, you know, can do if guided. Now, none of this is different. It all links to the Ofsted definition of teaching. And again, we hinted at that, started that one about 2019 when the inspection handbook changed, the education inspection framework. So again, all your staff should be aware of that. You know, so again, it's about hints, suggestions, resources, you know, prompts, model, demonstrate. I'm not going to go through all that, you know that. And again, if you've got any questions, please put it into the chat if we are going too fast for you. But again, it's going back to recognising, so it's about knowing your children, knowing child development. And again, this isn't anything new. I must admit, I only came about it about 6 months ago. It's a metacognition and self-regulated learning, and there is a booklet that goes with that. It was put out in 2018. They've just updated it, I think, in 2020. And again, I've put the poster up there, and the link is on the back slide. So you have got the link, but it's on our sources of document page. And again, we know from research, however, that children as young as 3 have been able to engage in a wide range of metacognitive and self-regulatory behaviours, such as setting themselves goals and checking their understanding. You know, so again, this is aimed at primary schools, but like anything, we are great adapters. We can adapt this. You know, so if you can download the poster on its own. And again, it comes from the Education Endowment Foundation. And again, it mentions, so I know that slide's not really easy to read, but it mentions the characteristics of effective teaching and learning. It's looking about how children learn. You know, it's modelling, verbalising, scaffolding, make it interesting and stimulating. So again, none of this is new. We just adapt it for early years. And if you're not aware of the Education Endowment Foundation, they have some wonderful books for early years. There's a Preparing for Literacy, and again, it gives us another poster, and there's one about mathematics in early years. And they have a really good website with a toolkit on there. So again, it's worth having a look at that and thinking, oh, actually, that might get, and I know time is important for all of us, but maybe it is worth just having a think. So, and then we're going on to those reflective questions. So again, back to that child's viewpoint. Does my environment provide me with the open-ended opportunities for supported challenge and risk as I test out my energy as well as boundaries and learn to regulate my brain and body? So again, also it's about staff development there, isn't it? Because actually they mentioned boundaries. You know, so again, we have to be consistent, but we do want them to challenge. We want these children to be confident. You know, the world has changed, you know, 18 months ago. So actually, these children have got to catch up. We want them to be confident. We want them to have their, you know, their own empowerment. We want them to have self-esteem. We want them to think, yeah, I can do that. You know, does the staff have an understanding of intervention versus interaction? Jo mentioned Julie Fisher back earlier in the presentation, and again we had her at our conference, and again it's about that staff, isn't it? If they're making a den and it's going okay, you stand back and you watch. You know, if they're getting frustrated because maybe the roof doesn't stay up, that's maybe you go in there with those hints. You know, actually, what can we do to keep the roof up? It's hooked over the side. What do we need? So again, not giving it to them, but again, offering those prompts. And when, you know, we've all been there where the role play is going really well and an adult goes in and all the children leave because actually we've disrupted that play. And there is nothing wrong by standing back, you know, and you vocabularize that to Ofsted. You say, well, actually, I'm just noticing. I'm seeing how that play is developing, what I can do tomorrow to then support that. You know, so again, there is no reason why you can't do that. Or you're observing the environment. You know, I'm noticing that actually nobody's going into our role play area. Why is that? You know, is it not meeting their needs? And again, do practitioners check their choices, approaches work for me to support my learning? So again, it's about recognizing those learning styles. What does that child need to do that? You know, and again, for me, that also links to in-depth learning. So again, it's offering the same thing, maybe in a different way. because actually some children like to paint and they might learn through that and doing all that. Some other children might not. So again, thinking about yourself as well, because we all learn differently. And with that, I'm going to hand you over to Jo for the last section within this.
Thanks, Nikki. So yeah, the last overarching principle is we're going to talk about the importance of learning and development, which is obviously key to that metacognition, as we're giving opportunity through the 7 areas of learning, with spoken language underpinning those 7 areas, those opportunities to think about thinking and learning to learn, basically. And personal, social and emotional development is also developed and interlinked throughout the 7 areas of learning. Again, that link thing, everything overlaps in early years, and it's great to see the characteristics of effective learning on this wheel as well. Now, obviously you will get this presentation, so I'm not going to bore you by reading every paragraph there, but the example of the 2 little ones in the middle there, 2 children experimented with water and construction using tubing and plastering sheets. So they're going to be cooperating and asserting their own ideas. They're going to be expressing their own ideas and possibly, hopefully, listening and understanding each other's suggestions. There's going to be that collaboration there, using language, maths. They're going to have to be possibly taking turns and working out how things fit together to build something. Playing together helps the children to feel part of the community, developing their own ideas and having confidence in their own abilities. And they're involved, they're focused on their tasks. Obviously, it's just a photo, but it's just an example of how all of these areas of learning, the whole 7 areas of learning, underpin and interweave to support that, developing their self-regulation and their executive functioning, which is absolutely key. But again, our staff attuned to these opportunities are our interactions, which are one of the key things Ofsted will be looking at now and spending time in your setting, not in the office anymore, with lots of files, watching those, hopefully those quality interactions. And what you are doing to teach, in inverted commas, the Ofsted definition of teaching, to support them to develop and manage their approaches. Nikki's already mentioned about, the adult who will walk into the, I've done it before many times, walk into the role play and then suddenly you're sat there on your own with nobody in the role play. And Julie Fisher, we've mentioned her already, she has the 3 W's, which I think is great. And it's not the World Wide Web, it's wait, watch and wonder. And so wait, watch the children and wonder, what are they doing? Can you tune in to what they're doing? Do they need me, or do they need me just to walk away? And Alistair Bryce-Clegg and Greg Bottrell, they all have the same. That's one thing they all do agree on. They agree on lots of things, but one thing they all agree in. And Greg Bottrell says, as an adult, don't steamroller in thinking that you're going to be, great help to them, because you could basically steamroller over what is happening. So it's really important. And if any of you have seen or read it or dipped into it, because it is the sort of book you can do that with, Julie Fisher has a great book, Interactions or Interference. So that's sometimes worth just those 2 keywords, considering when you are, interacting and supporting children in your setting. So we're going to have a few minutes rest now, just from, hopefully this will work for everybody. We have a video about developing self-regulation through physical play. So have a little bit of a watch at the little boy on this. If for any reason you cannot see it, please put it in the chat and we will sort that out for you. So hopefully you all got something from that, and hopefully it reflects a lot of what we've been talking about throughout this afternoon. You know, I think one of the key things that I take from that is the way that all of those little ones in any of those situations, they obviously had really positive relationships with the adult carers around them. And there was no, you didn't hear any comments like, oh, be careful, you might hurt yourself, as the little boy was climbing on the wall. He felt safe and secure to do that. The little one with the hammer, bless her, she didn't give up, did she? She got there in the end. You know, all of those sort of key things that we're talking about, that the positive relationships, that value, that sense of belonging, you know, supporting them to develop that self-regulation, those skills that will go with them next, you know, further on with them in their lives. And I'm going to pop a link into the chat, and it's an article with some sort of comments of different ways you can say to, basically, it's stop telling kids to be careful and what to say instead. Now, it is from America and it is about outdoor learning, but you can see from the quotes in the article about how
Jo, you've gone on to mute.
I don't know why that happened. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, obviously, if we say to children, be careful, you might hurt yourself, that's what they're going to think of. But when that little boy, for example, got down off the wall, he ran away from it, obviously going to have another go or do something else. But the lady said to him something along the lines of, you know, wow, that was fantastic. You did XYZ to achieve ABC. You know, that's what it was about. So he knew what he had done to achieve his goal, which was great. So I'm going to try. I'm hoping that link is going to work. Yep, there you go. So it's just something for you to look at if you'd like to find some other sort of ways. And there is a poster there that you can download, I think, as well. If not, let me know and I'll send you some more information. So we're coming to the end. So we're going to move on to the next slide, which is about play. Now, we all know play is there. It's been mentioned at the beginning of the session. It's mentioned in everything we do. And, you know, it's essential for children's development. I don't need to read these out for you. You know, it's like teaching grandma to suck eggs, as they say. We know it's so important, but there is no harm at all. Like I always say, clicking on a refresh button and how important it is. And you might like to use some of this information. Nikki said this with people new to the EYFS, so they can understand how important it is. And the video talked about physical play, didn't it? But here we've got what Julian Grenier says about pretend play, that children have to follow the rules of the play and they have to restrain their impulses sometimes for a time in that role play. I can think back to some really funny observations I've seen, children demonstrating their emotions and their experiences, sadly not always positive through their role play, but it is really about offering those quality experiences of pretend role play, whatever you like to call it, as children learn, like it says on the Bright Horizons quote at the bottom, they learn to do things like negotiate, consider others' perspectives, transfer knowledge from one situation to another. The list goes on and on and on. So sometimes possibly have a little bit of a think about what you offer them. You know, research shows that really, if you can, and not everybody has the room, some people are in a pack away setting, everybody is very different, a childminder in their own home, but having those resources to create that typical home corner are really, really important, because all children have some form of an experience that you can add to that, and they can they can display their emotions through their play as well, giving them that opportunity to be themselves and demonstrate and connect with you as well, you know, and offer them different things through that role play. Perhaps there's a really great Nursery World article recently about role play, and it was talking about how, you know, if people are talking about going on holiday, you don't always have to set up a travel agent. And for example, in this day and age now, not many of us actually go to a travel agent. We tend to book all our holidays online. So, you know, just put in the role play things that represent holiday. So obviously not real passports, but create some passports for the children. Put some, perhaps a few brochures in there, put some tickets, some devices that they can just role play that they're booking their holiday on, like mummy and daddy might be, writing a list. of what they need to take on their holiday, some different size suitcases with swimming costumes, sun hats, all of those sorts of things in to represent that holiday. And you know, for cultural backgrounds as well, if you've got children who celebrate different festivals throughout the year linked to their religions, have key items that represent that, possibly clothing, cooking implements, decorations, all of these things in that role play to represent their experiences. So again, they feel valued and included in what is happening in the environment. And ask parents to help you with this. You know, they might lend you some like cooking implements that represent how specific items are cooked in the family home, and that will be lovely to have that in your role play. So just a little bit of a different way of looking at how you offer that, because we know that through role play children can connect, demonstrate first-hand experiences, and they can tell you so much as a practitioner to support them in their next steps of learning, but also support them definitely with their self-regulation. So the next slide, we get to those reflective questions yet again. Again, from a child's perspective, and I'm not going to read all of these out to you. They're again for you to take back and have a think about. The second one there I've just mentioned about, do your observations and monitoring support you in recognizing when a child may need that emotional or practical help? Like I said, I've seen many a times children demonstrate not to the point where it's a safeguarding situation, but sort of the way things, you know, they'll model what happens in the home, and you think, okay, they might need a little bit more support here. You know, how does your observation of schemas support your understanding of social and emotional development? And how will you help me feel good about myself as an individual and as part of particular groups, but not defined solely by any one of them? So like I said, just incorporating those resources into the role play area, that the home corner that is already there. It's not a standalone activity. Oh, we'll do that tomorrow because it's Diwali, and then we won't do it the next day. You know, so it's incorporating it into your day-to-day practice. And obviously acknowledging we need to ensure that all staff are knowledgeable about racism and other forms of bias, and that we challenge ourselves as well. And we must be the best role models we can be for our children to support our own PSED, as well as theirs. And like we've said many times, it's all about that noticing and knowing. Those are two real key words throughout all of this. Through the key worker process from day one, as soon as those parents step over your threshold, threshold, that's not the right word, your doorstep into you know, into your setting. So it's really thinking about all of those things. So some more reflective questions for you there. And that's the end of the principles now. And then the next page is just sources of support. So Nikki's put together obviously many key documents that I'm sure some of you have already looked at: the statutory framework, development matters, birth to 5. But we've got some video from Siren Films there, some more information about metacognition, working with the revised EYFS principles into practice, co-regulation. There's obviously lots of Nursery World articles, and our EYFS reforms page as well, which has links to all the YouTube, our YouTube link, which takes you to where all of our recent training is on there. And so this one will eventually go on there with all our little blips as well.
Yeah, more blips.
So I'm just,
I do apologise about it.
No, it makes it more interesting, Nikki.
Jo, I'm just going to mention the Working with Revised Early Years Foundation Stage. That's a Julian Grenhill book. You can download that free, or you can buy it on Amazon. It's a good document that you could then email out to your colleagues and ask them to read through it and use it, because like Jo said, it's a dip in out one. But also, if you are thinking of printing it off, it might be worth looking at what the cost will be on Amazon, because actually it's a big document, but it is a great document.
Yeah.
And if you're like me, you know, I write in mine and scribble all over it and put like tabs in and different things. So it is worth just thinking about actually the cost of it, because sometimes I think it's about £14–15 if you've got to print it off in colour and bind it somehow, because it is a big document. It might be worth you just buying that.
Link, sorry, Can I just say, Nikki, linked to, I don't know whether you can get Julian Grenier's book on there, but on regarding your statutory framework, your development matters, all of those documents, including inspection handbook and things. I know some people are selling them on YouTube, binded. And I've got to be honest with you, I got my development matters and my statutory framework off of there, and it was about £6 for both, all bound and nice. So, because it's like you say, it's a lot of printing if you do want a hard copy of those. So just a little tip.
And I know you belong to the Early Years Alliance. They usually do their development matters and EYFS together as well.
Yeah.
I haven't heard. I will have a look into that. So I'm hoping you found this useful. We've got any questions? I know some of you do have to leave because it is the end of the school day and different bits and pieces. We do have an evaluation form, which
I'm just doing it.
Joe's doing that for me because it wouldn't let me do it at all.
There you go.
Ah, there you are. So please, it takes a minute, and if that link doesn't take you straight there, then you put that link in your search engine, you copy it and put it into your search engine, it will put it in. So again, and like every time, we will be around until past, but we do like to leave you with a quote. And I think this is a thing, because again, this is all something we have done every day in 100 small ways. Our children ask, do you see me? Do you hear me? Do I matter? And their behaviour often reflects our response. Actually, I can relate to that as an adult. You know, if I talk to somebody and they don't hear you, and I'm thinking somebody close by that didn't hear me earlier on, you know, do I matter to you? Are you listening to me? You know, so again, we have to think about that sometimes. It's good to reflection for all of us, isn't it? And again, thank you for attending. We do appreciate it. As I said, Joe said it will be on YouTube, and the poor people who are watching it for the first time are going to think we're a bit loopy, or I'm chasing a fly at my house or something. But again, thank you, and we do welcome your input. We do have training coming up over the next few months, and there is one around enabling environments. And if you want any different sort of training, then please, again, put that in your evaluation forms, because we do look at that, and we are planning our springtime training. Joe, you're doing one on letters and sounds, aren't you?
Yeah.
In November?
Yeah, November.
Definitely.
And phase one, letters and sounds.
Phase 1's letters and sounds. And like I say, we're doing enabling environments one as well. So if there's anything else you would like, then please, again, put it on your evaluation form.
I'm going to stop the recording. So if anybody, there we go. I'm going to stop